Maxine, what are you hiding?
I've seen the devil stalking me. I can feel his power.
It is said that horror is the most fun genre to work in, especially if your character is killing or being killed. Based on your experiences on set and with your characters, would you agree with that statement?
I'd have to agree. I mean, just watching this movie, what comes down the steps toward the end of this movie is just blows my mind. It's interesting. It's intriguing. It's great because it not only, it partially depends on the way it's shot, but it's also the way it's done. The artistry that goes into horror, I think, is like no other genre of film that there is. I mean, I just think you can really do something that really is mesmerizing and expanding and electric and also very frightening.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. I mean, this is my first movie, and I was talking to, my actor friends when I was auditioning for it, and I was like, what do you think about this? And they're like, horror is the best thing that you could do as an actor. I was like, oh, okay, well, calm down, but also I'm sick and doing it. Yeah, I have to agree. It was so fun. Emotionally, there are high highs and low lows, and all of those are really great to play with as an actor and get to experience.
So this was your first ever movie role?
Yeah.
You really took the traditional route, debuting in a horror film. That's actually marvelous. It works very well in this story, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, it's all very meta.
On your own list, Leon's list, yeah.
Exactly. That's actually the perfect segue for my next question for you, Ty West. X, this is a phenomenon. These three films are a phenomenon. X brought back the traditional grindhouse slasher, put slashers back on the market. Pearl brought back big, bold Technicolor visuals. And last but not least, MaXXXine is sort of bringing back whole new ways of filmmaking and all these 80s tropes. People are talking about this. Did you plan this from the beginning? Or did you always visualize this as a trilogy? How did this story come to be?
Not at first. At first, it was just X. And then COVID happened. And so we had to go to New Zealand to make X because it was the only place to safely make the movie because they didn't have COVID, because the borders were completely shut down and they never had COVID. And so you had to quarantine for 2 weeks to get into the country. And then you could sort of operate as usual and make a movie. And we were so fortunate to have gotten the work visas to do that in the very beginning. And I was so desperate to stay there, not just because I didn't want to come home and sit in my house, but because I felt so grateful to be able to be like one of the only people on planet Earth making a movie, that I was like, how do we use all the resources that we're taking to New Zealand and make 2 movies? And that's where the idea, because Mia was already playing older Pearl, that we could make a prequel, and all of the barn and everything we built for X, we could just reuse in another movie, which makes that movie cheaper. And so I had 2 weeks in quarantine to figure out what that movie was and write it and convince A24 that we should make 2 movies back to back. And credit to them, they said, okay. And then at the same time, I said, and if that works, then we can make a 3rd movie and it'll be about her in the 80s and this kind of stuff will be happening. And they liked that idea. And then it just became this snowball that started rolling, that if the first 2 work, then we'll make the 3rd one. And somehow, here we are.
I definitely don't think Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street sequels had this level of planning. But I'm glad it worked out because this is considered one of the best horror trilogies ever.
It's very strange for me because I've been working nonstop for 4.5 years, like 7 days a week, 12 hours a day on these movies. And so it's a bittersweet feeling to be sort of at the end, but I have no context of it because it's still kind of happening to me. So it's very surreal when I see people in the costumes or I hear people say what you're saying. And I'm very grateful to hear it. And it's very flattering to hear it. But I still don't have the perspective to even know what I've been doing for the past 4 years because I've just been so in it.
MaXXXine, this is a super meta narrative. It's about Hollywood, the industry, films, the whole trilogy, and the people who are in it. It's about the sleazy agents who turn out to be quite heroic, who have their own knowledge of homicide and life on the street. And it's also about the people who sell or are fans of horror films, whether they're selling them at their rental store or they're familiar with all the deep cuts. And then everyone who's trying to break in and make a living because they love movies, they love stardom. What do you think this trilogy has this impact? It's resonated with so many audiences. Why do you think that is?
For me, it's a love letter to humanity, to people who really, who have some ambition and want to make their lives better, whether it be, in film, our industry that we live in here in Hollywood, or whether it be in the business world or wherever it is. I think it's well thought out because it serves relationships. This movie is so much about fathers and daughters. I mean, incredibly so. It's about making mistakes. It's about being fanatical about something. It's about wanting to push your point of view on someone else. It's just about so much of this, telling a story. How about that? telling the story, your story, or the story of your life. I think Ty has done an incredible job in manifesting a film well thought out that has all of this in it. It's a love letter to film, period. Yes, this is about a horror film, the movie within a movie. Our lives are a movie. So you know what I mean when you really think about it. And we would love, some of us who don't feel like we can relate to our lives being a movie, would love for our lives to be a movie. And at the end of the movie, we're going to make another movie about the character who lived through this movie. I think it's brilliant. It's an encapsulated version of what our lives are, and to be human with each other, as in relationships between, between MaXXXine and Leon, between MaXXXine and her dearest friends. Who, I mean, the moment she's standing in the you go back to the morgue and she's standing there, you have to help. You have to do something to help all these other girls. That's the responsibility moment that is so human. And we go back there and she thinks about it and she makes a decision to go and do something. Right? Isn't that what our lives are? Like, you want to lift other people up. You want to be in concert with other people. You want to, somehow be responsible for the whole, even in a little small way. That's so much of what this movie is. I'm sorry. I'm excited.
You should be.
He's so good.
I don't want to add anything to that. Yeah.
I mean, it's the classic hero's journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hero and heroine's journey.
Heroine's journey.
This
Oh,
movie is
certainly.
so important to young women. What you see on the screen, and you see, the Night Stalker. I mean, we have a history. Jack the Ripper. Go back. Women are always the ones who are the pawns, who are taken out, who are killed, who are abused, right? And then you meet a woman who, is kick ass. And in that moment, man, she's kick ass by that car. My girls, I have 4 daughters. We're like, yeah! You finally see that. It's time that we understand that we have powerful women in our world, and give them their due and trust them and allow them to open like flowers as they should.